All the messages um, in the chat. Thank you very much. And as always, you're welcome to, yes, keep introducing yourselves in the chat. And so before we go into the program, well, Pamela and I would like to welcome you. I don't know, Pamela, if you wanted to say hello as well.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are so excited about being here with you today, and we're looking forward to a very, very productive meeting. Thank you, Ivy.
Yes, thank you. So this month, NGO CSW has dedicated to peace. So October is Peace Month for us. As you know, at the end of the month, we'll be celebrating the Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security. And so in line with that, we are dedicating this month. We will have a peace rally in person. Those of you who are in the New York area, please join us. We're going to be at the Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza, and that will be on the day of the open debate, which is the 24th of October. And that is going to be from 1 to 3, which is the lunch time. So hopefully we will also get some participants. We will be inviting member states and UN to be joining us, and we'll have some people, share some words. And also we are opening it up for support from members. So members with an organizational membership can co-sponsor the rally. So you just need to send your logo and email it to info@ngocsw. And the other announcement is about, we have a series of events in person, again, events. And the next one is October 18th. This is the John Jay series. So the October 18th is going to be a film on femicide in the Americas. And this will be at 1:30. It's a lunchtime event, 1:30. And they will actually have some lunch there for you if you do show up. So it's at John Jay College for Criminal Justice. And there is a link. Thank you. Yes, the Eventbrite link. Please do register, because in order to get in through security, you need to be already on the list. So it is important for you to register in advance. And then we also have, there will be another link on the chat, and this is to invite any of you who are, again, paying members, supporting members, to help co-host our monthly meeting. So the program portion, the 90 minutes, which is our program, this is the business portion right now, but the program portion, we want to engage the members also to help plan that. So if you are interested, please fill out that form. And my last announcement is about parallel events. This is so exciting. So CSW 69 Beijing plus 30, we have opened the parallel event applications. I think most of you, I don't know, raise of hands if you saw the email. It was sent Friday night. So that would be maybe almost Saturday morning for some people in Europe. But hopefully you've seen it. We've opened the parallel events. It's first come, first serve, which is a very different process this year. We're trying something different. And so if you want your in-person event venue like booked, you need to do it like right away. Of course, the sooner the better, if you want your first pick. And then for virtual parallel event applications, that's of course unlimited. I mean, you can apply for as many as you want. For the in-person, it's one per leading organization. So we cannot offer the same organization who's listed as the lead of an event to host more than one. So that's very important. We're going to highlight it many times on the application. And actually, unfortunately, technically, you can actually click on multiple choices of the listing, and that may be confusing. But you can only submit one in-person application. we're going to emphasize this a million times over because it could be confusing. So you can only submit one, and if you click multiple ones, then you're not going to be refunded money for because of the I mean, that's what we say on the application, and hopefully everybody will read it. But as always, we're here for questions. If you have any concerns, you can reach out to the office and we will help you, of course. So I think that's it for my announcements. Yes, so I'm going to hand it over to Pamela.
Thank you, Ivy. And again, good morning, all. I have just 3 announcements. The first is about NGO-CSW's CSW statement. And before I go into the statement, I'll share the good news about the Pact for the Future. And CSW revitalization is included in Pact for the Future. And as you know, we did a survey to see what we were looking for, what our constituency was looking for in CSW revitalization. And for almost a year now, we've been working on that topic. So we do have in the Pact for the Future, Action 43, we will strengthen the Economic and Social Council to accelerate sustainable development. And item D, request the council through an inclusive intergovernmental process with the participation of all member states to explore options in the context of the forthcoming 30th anniversary of the Fourth World Conference on Women to revitalize the Commission on the Status of Women to promote the full and effective implementation of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action to achieve gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls, and promote and protect their human rights, and to ensure that the Commission is fit for purpose, while affirming the mandate of the Commission and consider options as required to strengthen other subsidiary organs of the Council. So that is a major accomplishment. As a result, NGO-CSW's written statement for CSW, which was actually submitted on our behalf by the Red Dot Foundation, has 3 key points. The first point is increase accountability of all commissions on the status of women stakeholders, governments, United Nations organizations, civil society organizations, and others. The second, enhance inclusion of diverse constituencies. And the third major point is enhance effectiveness and relevance of the Commission on the status of women. And our full statement will be available on our website. So I'd like to thank Rosa Lazard and the ARG for crafting this wonderful statement. My next announcement has to do with our feminist foreign policy event that was held on Friday, October 11th. We are so fortunate to have as an executive committee member, Potini Papiajati, who specializes in this field. And she led an expert discussion on feminist foreign policy with Dinora Arceta of the Institute for Women in Migration and Diana Luta of UN Women. And the overarching question examined during the session was, with progress towards gender equality lagging, can feminist and gender-responsive approaches to foreign policy spur cohesive, transformative action for the achievement of the SDGs and gender equality 30 years after the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action? This event provided an overview of the evolution of feminist and gender-responsive approaches to foreign policy and outlined critical perspectives, limitations, and challenges for this agenda. And then it explored linkages with the Beijing Platform for Action and opportunities for its advancement. And the video for this extremely important session are on our YouTube channel, and a link will be put in the chat. My third and last announcement is about the Cities for CEDAW grant that we received from the Pinkerton Foundation that we will use to enhance Cities for CEDAW recognition during the upcoming CSW. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rachel for some very exciting news about our YIP.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to see you all here. We have a very exciting announcement. We have chosen 15 Global Youth Fellows out of 2,600 applicants. So it was a long process, but we have found 15 amazing young people, and we're so excited to welcome to the 2024-2025 cohort. And we will be making that announcement later this week. So stay tuned for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Rachel. And at this time, we're going to ask UN Women to join us, Johannes Lang, to join us to give updates from UN Women. And I don't know if Johannes, okay, Johannes, please take the floor.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. Thank you so much for the invitation to be part of that meeting. I hope you can hear me well. And I just want to provide a few updates from UN Women's side and look forward to so we all look forward to the close collaboration with NGO CSW and NGO CSW members for the upcoming Beijing +30 session. And we do expect a large attendance, just judging by the large interest also that we have been receiving. So that is really great to see. And just to provide a few updates, maybe also leave some room for questions. As many of you may have seen, we have sent the invitation letter to register for CSW to all ECOSOC accredited organizations. And this was then the opening officially of the CSW registration. So if you would like to start registering your participants for the upcoming session, the registration is open. And just in the 2 weeks since the registration opened, we could already see a very high number, a higher number than in previous sessions in the same time period have registered. So we currently have more than 1,000 participants registered for CSW already. And that's great. And it's also, I think, good to be able to register early so that visa applications can be brought in early. Because we know that this is a difficult process, and the more time there is, hopefully the better it is for everyone. But if you have any questions, so you will find the link to the CSW registration on the CSW website, of course, also in the invitation letter. But if you have any questions, then you are welcome to send an email to csw@unwomen.org. I'll put the email address in the chat in a moment. And we would also like to thank all NGOs who have submitted a written statement for the upcoming session. So we have received more than 200 statements. That's a significantly higher number than in previous years. So we're happy to see a very high interest here as well. And again, would like to thank everyone who submitted a statement. The way forward with the statement is that they now will be processed. They will be then formatted and basically uploaded into the UN official document system by the UN Secretariat, and will be available latest 6 weeks before the session as official documents of the upcoming CSW. If there are any questions during that process, we will get back to the statement submitter. But if you don't hear from us, then that means your statement is being processed and should be online. Then usually the first ones come out in late December, but then latest by 6 weeks before the session, all of them will be online in the official document system of the UN and also on the CSW website. And basically, we would like to invite you to visit the CSW website. We hope there will be some critical updates coming soon. You see that already the national reports are online on the CSW website. We hope that soon there will also be the papers of the expert group meeting that took place in August. And then, of course, after the regional consultations that you're fully aware of, also the regional reports will be published. So please keep an eye on the CSW website as we go closer to the session. We would also like to invite you, if you have any questions concerning youth engagements, and we hope that many young colleagues are part of that meeting, to write to our youth email address, where we'll be able to give support and share information. I'll paste it into the chat in a moment as well. And I hope you have seen the webcast. I mean, thanks to those who came to the event during the Summit of the Future Action Days, but also thanks to all who participated online. If you would like to review the event, and I'm talking about the Beijing +30 launch event at the Summit of the Future Action Days, that's online, and we'll be happy to provide that link, of course. We had 2 meetings with civil society and our DED Yaratsai on Beijing +30 preparations. We are planning a next meeting in November, probably mid-November, and we'll be happy, of course, to share the date and the registration link through NGO CSW, and would invite you then to also join that 3rd meeting, where we'll be updated specifically on Beijing +30. But I think I'll stop here, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Johannes, always for your support and being here. And if there are any questions, if people can put it on in the chat, that would be great. Unless there's someone, we still have a few more minutes. So if anyone did want to raise their hand and you have a question on what Johannes just shared or anything that Pamela and I shared, you're welcome to ask that now.
Ivy Queen Mother's hand was up.
All right. Queen Mother. I don't see her now on my screen, but I see Naya on the screen. Please, you have the floor.
Queen Mother is here.
Oh, great, Queen Mother. Would you like to take the floor?
Yes, just blessings to all of you. And I'm born October 1, which is the month of peace that you're speaking of to all of us. And I am so pleased with the youth for the Summit of the Future, doing the General Assembly. And it's important that we heard their voices during the GA debate. And their concern, which I want to raise to all of us, a part of including the young people and hearing from them what they would like to say, and have submitted the resolution of the Security Council, which they were in Montpellier, France. And I attended from, I would say it was many countries participated with the youth, globally, leaders, and they were able to work on the resolution of the Security Council to include the word peace, peace building, peace initiative, peace through sports. And as you know, that was the time of the Olympics. So many of the young people were also at the Olympics, and it was just a wonderful situation for us to have witnessed that so many sneakers were on the ground at the Olympics, and for them to foster the word peace and the debate that they're having even to this day on that word of inclusion. Please make sure we leave that legacy and engage the young people to participate and shape the world they want coming out of the summit of the future. And I thank you for allowing Queen Mother to speak on their behalf. I thank you.
Thank you, Queen Mother. Love that. Sneakers on the ground. So Naya and then Grace after that.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, clear.
I just wanted to ask more about youth involvement because at the time where I currently live, I live in Lebanon, in Beirut, in the capital. So youth involvement here has, well, been decreasing, and I have been a volunteer for 2 years now, and I've been helping with the whole crisis we're facing here and the refugees. So I just wanted to ask if I could volunteer or anything, even though if it's like virtual or something. That's basically it. I don't have something else to say other than I really enjoy uh, involvement and stuff like that. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. Yes, and I'll take all of them and then we'll put together all of, and then Rachel, you can maybe address that one too. Okay, Grace. Can you unmute? Are you able to? Okay, good.
Okay. I wanted to ask if there is a deadline to when statements can come in, and is there a limit to the number of statements that can be received? I also want to suggest that perhaps you can write to the registered NGOs to ensure that they include statements from the youths. All of them, I suppose, have a youth section. And from my experience, sometimes the youth are either afraid to speak. We all know what happened in Nigeria some years ago about the youths who came out to protest. So mothers are holding back their children and saying, don't go out and protest because we don't want you dead. So perhaps if we ask the NGOs to ensure that they include youths and also have them send in statements, that might help to hear their voice, because we do need, like Mama said, we do need to hear the voice of the youth. Thank you.
Thank you, absolutely. So Maze and Mary, and then we'll close for comments and questions. Okay, Maze.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to ask about the registration for side events and organization of side events. Is that still open? And when is the deadline? So in order to make sure if how fast we can we have to register.
Great. Okay, Mary.
Hello, everyone. As we are commemorating the Day of Women in rural communities, my question is there any way to engage these women in rural communities to participate or to hear their voices during the CSW 69? I attended the International Day of the Girl Child. What they did, because of resources, they recorded the videos, and with their consent, the videos were played during the event. Can we do also the same if we cannot bring one or two? Maybe we can talk to civil society organizations who are working with these women in the rural areas to record videos which can be heard. We want to hear their voices. We don't want to continue representing them. And as we celebrate this day, where are these women? Thank you.
Great suggestion. Fatna. Okay, this is Fatna, you're the last person to, yeah. Yes, I think we can hear you.
شكرا.
Shukran.
شكرا على يعني كل المشاركات. أنا من المغرب. أنا بودي أن أطرح مسألة طريقة مشاركة، يعني النسبة أو الكوطة التي تعطى للشباب، وكيف هو مضمون هذه المشاركة. هل المشاركة تكون عبارة عن كتابات أو منتوجات فيديوهات أو منتوجات أدبية؟ وهل يمكن يعني أن الشباب مثلا المشاركين من بلدي المغرب أن يقدموا تقريرا عن آمالهم وطموحاتهم، وخصوصا أن هناك يعني وضع خاص، تقارير عدد سكان المغرب ما يقارب 40 مليون تقريبا. القاعدة الهرمية كلها شباب، وما يقارب 4 مليون شباب هم بدون تكوين، بدون استكمال دراسة، بدون يعني أن مستقبل الشباب في المغرب، وأعتقد في منطقة شمال إفريقيا كلها وحتى المشرق، مع مشاكل الحرب ومع مشاكل يعني الهجرة والتهجير، كيف يمكن أن يساهم شبابنا في هذه المحطة المهمة؟ وما هي طبيعة التقارير يعني مضمونها؟ أنا استمعت للأخ الذي سبق تحدث عن أن هناك إمكانية التواصل معه عبر البريد الإلكتروني. نتمنى توضيحات أكثر لكي تكون المشاركة مهمة ومسموعة لدى العالم. شكرا.
Thank you, Shukran. So I think I'm going to hand it over to Johannes to kind of collectively answer, and then Rachel and I can pick up others, and Pamela, if we miss something, or Rosa, please also fill in. Okay, Johannes.
Thank you so much, colleagues, and thank you, Ivy. And it's so encouraging to hear your engagement for our young colleagues, for youth. And so we have been encouraging ECOSOC accredited organizations to include youth in their CSW delegations. So we have been putting that in the invitation letter. At every consultation and briefing we say it, but we cannot, as UN Women, we cannot nominate or approve participants. So it is really up to ECOSOC accredited organizations to include youth in your delegation to CSW, in your statements. And we have been having video statements during the CSW general discussion. And it is up to the organization, it's up to the ECOSOC accredited organizations who will give that statement, which perspective will be presented. And we did have, fortunately, we did have youth speaking on behalf of organizations, on behalf of civil society, on behalf of youth, also bringing a regional perspective at the session during the general discussion. But it's not enough. So it was good to see, but we would really like to encourage all organizations to include youth in their delegations and in their statements. We're also encouraging member states to include not only civil society, but also specifically youth on their national delegations. So we'll be doing that again closer to the session. Our ED and the CSW chair are very strong on that and want to make sure that member states also include youth and civil society in their national official delegations. So we try to make sure that youth will more and more be able to participate in CSW, and that CSW will hear from youth more and more. If 2 years ago, one of the interactive dialogues that happens during the official program of the CSW was dedicated to youth delegates and youth voices, and that has continued. And maybe we're even able to propose to the CSW Bureau to expand that youth perspective in the official program as well. In addition to that, and I'll put, sorry, I promised it before, but I'll put in a moment, I'll put the email address for youth engagement in the chat, because we are also, as UN Women, we are also doing regional consultations with youth leading up to the session, to hear their recommendations, to build capacity, to involve them in the CSW process. So if you're interested, please write to this email address that I will be pasting in a moment to learn about these regional youth consultations. And that will then also be followed by global youth consultations leading up and during the session in New York. I hope I'll leave it at that for youth, but it's really so encouraging to hear from you. And we again we would like to see more youth participate in CSW, and it would be great if ECOSOC accredited organizations could nominate youth that should be ideally part of every delegation. When it comes to side events, the question on whether side events applications are accepted. So I'll hand over here to Ivy, because that may be a question related to the NGO parallel events. Side events on UN premises organized by member states and by UN entities, that will come closer to the session. So of course, if you're thinking of partnering with a member state or UN entity for a side event on UN premises, then you could already be in touch with your mission. The mission would have to sponsor the side event if it takes place on UN premises. The reservation will come probably in December, but it would be good to already start the discussions if you're planning that. But I think if it's related to NGO parallel events, I'll hand over, of course, to my colleagues in NGO CSW.
With that, thank you, Johannes. Yes, so we have side events within the UN, and as Johannes said, that is sponsored by member states or UN. And we have parallel events. Those are the events outside the UN that NGO CSW holds, and those are in 2 venues, and that's for the in-person. Our NGO forum is hybrid, so we have a virtual portion of parallel event applications and then the in-person. But right now, like I said, it's first come, first serve for the in-person slots. So as soon as those are filled, then we close the applications, because we usually have more applicants than we have rooms. So Rachel, if I had got any of the information wrong, please correct me, because I think there is in the office, you guys do maybe have a set date for the virtual applications, and it's slipped my mind, but if you could mention that, and then the YP engagement.
Yeah, so we have 2 different deadlines this year, because the in-person is first come, first serve. So it is more or less on a rolling basis. Our official deadline is November 25th, but if all the spots fill up before then it will just be the wait list. So the last day to join the wait list is November 25th. For virtual events, it's December 2nd. The scheduling for those is much simpler, so we leave that open. So those are the 2 deadlines, and all of that can be accessed at ngocsw.org/parallel events app. And I will put that in the chat again. As for YLYP engagement, I have to find the link, but I will put that in the chat as well, so that you can join the this mailing list for our YLYP newsletters. And
what's YLYP?
yeah, I think. Sorry?
For those who might not understand this acronym.
Oh, yeah. So YLYPs are the Youth Leaders and Young Professionals program here at NGO CSW, and that is sort of the parent umbrella for the Global Youth Fellows. So we do have a broader network of youth professionals, people who want to make a difference. And so that is really the YLYP community. And, like what some people are saying in the chat, that young people need help learning how to engage at the UN. And that is kind of one of the main goals of the Global Youth Fellows and the YLYP community. We want to provide those resources so that young people know what they're talking about, and they know how to engage, they know how to approach policymakers, member states, people who can help realize these goals. So that is kind of a gist of YLYPs and Global Youth Fellows. And you can email YLYPs@ngocsw.org to contact us.
Great, thank you. Thank you everyone for your engagement. And so we're going to now turn to the program for today. And so it's all about hearing them, the women and girls in conflict and occupation. And I would like to hand over the program to the moderator today, and that's Shireen Jurdi, and I would like to introduce her. And before I introduce her, actually, I also wanted to mention why we wanted to approach this program, this event, the way we did, because I'm sure we are all aware that the conflicts are happening all over the world, and there's so many of them. Right? There's over 100 conflicts. If we were to try to capture all of that into this one meeting, I think we would definitely not be able to fit it in 90 minutes. I think we'd have to be here for days to do it. And so what we wanted to do is we are focusing on one of the regions, one of the many, again, who are really experiencing unbelievable suffering, and at this time, innocently so. And my heart really just goes out to, yeah, it's very hard to understand when I'm in the comfort of my own home, in a country that is not at war at the moment, and not in conflict, although it is in conflict with itself, because violence against women and girls exists in this country of the United States. So I don't think we can say we're free of violence here. And I think that, the UNESCO Constitution says that, since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed. And this is my own very personal belief that the culture of peace has to be embedded, lived by every one of us for this to truly change at the most fundamental level, for us to not turn to arms. And just the mentality of it is, I feel like, is violent in its nature, and we have to change the culture of war. And it's going to take every one of us to get there. And I truly believe that. I don't think we're helpless. I believe that we are so powerful, and we can change the history, and we are changing history as we speak. And so thank you for participating in this very important meeting here today. We do have virtual guidelines we're going to put in the chat. If please familiarize anyone who's part of NGO CSW's programs already know the guidelines, but we just want to make this a safe space for everybody, and a respectful one. And if not, then we're going to have to ask you to leave also. So just to warn you there. But I think that's why we always hold meetings, not webinars. We keep mics and chats open for everybody to hold dialogues with each other. And so thank you again for everyone's cooperation. So let me go straight in and talk about Shireen. And so she is a seasoned peace mediator and advocate with nearly 2 decades of experience specializing in peace building, mediation, and peace processes with a gender-sensitive approach. And as MENA Regional Liaison Officer for the Global Partnership of the Prevention of Armed Conflict, she's played a pivotal role in mediating conflicts and fostering dialogue with partners across the MENA region. And Shireen spearheaded the establishment of the MENA Coalition on Youth, Peace, and Security, and a working group on women and conventional weapons, linking mediation efforts to the principles of UN Security Council 1325. She is now currently contributing to the WILF, which is the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom Lebanon, where she leads the Stop Killer Robots campaign, and served as MENA regional representative on the international board, and now is the president of the section in Lebanon. And additionally, she's a member of the steering committee of the Arab States CSOs and Feminist Network and the International Board of the Control Arms Coalition. And then I'll stop there. And I'm going to hand over the program, like I said, to Shreen. Thank you so much again for this amazing panel that we're going to hear.
Thank you, Ivy. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, NGO CSW, for co-organizing this event to make this happen, to make our voices from MENA be heard. I want to thank everybody in here in the room for this, for joining us to this event, which is at the open debate on women, peace, and security. Today's discussion centers on two critical pillars of the Beijing Platform of Action, as was just mentioned. And we saw Naya from Beirut, and now Naya from Beirut, we have a new friend and a new colleague that we're going to collaborate with. So today's discussion mainly focuses on women in conflict and young girls. As we gather here, I want to acknowledge that I'm speaking from a place that is far from safe, almost 80 kilometers away from my home, was bombarded on a daily basis. A reality shared by many of us who live in conflict zones. While we convene to advocate for change, we do so under the shadow of violence and insecurity. This is not just a theoretical discussion for us. It is our lived reality. Unfortunately, the Women, Peace and Security agenda has lost many of its core pillars in the MENA region. Women here are asking, where are the women in decision-making? Where are the promises of prevention and protection as violence rages on? How can we identify with an agenda that overlooks militarization and occupation? And you can see in the photos the impact of conflict and wars. While women are dying in Gaza, Lebanon, and other places in the world, while pregnant women suffer miscarriages amidst airstrikes, while children are killed before their names are even registered and burned alive, we must ask ourselves, what are the global commitments to women, peace and security and feminist foreign policy doing to address this suffering? Who do they serve? So why are we here? Are we here to simply call for a ceasefire? Simply no. A ceasefire is not enough. It may hold the violence temporary, but it will not address the deep-rooted injustice, the trauma, and the systematic oppression that women and girls endure daily. Ceasefires are fragile pauses in a relentless cycle of violence. What we need is a commitment to prevention, a commitment to stop the violence before it starts, to address the root causes of conflict, and to ensure that women and girls are not merely seen as casualties, but as agents of change. States ask for ceasefire, but don't question occupation and apartheid. And at first opportunity, they defund women's organizations and beyond. States condemn violence and call heads of states criminals, but they still normalize relation with them, and worse, arm them. Are we here to speak about women's participation in peace processes? Again, no. Participation is not enough when it means women are included only as tokens, while the real decisions are made without them. We are tired of seeing women's voices sidelined in peace tables and decisions that define peace and holding power accountable for the realities we face on the ground. We cannot speak of meaningful participation while overlooking the root causes of their oppression, mention violence and states' tendency to overlook their complicity. And what about feminist foreign policy? Several states have adopted feminist foreign policy and developed national action plans on women, peace, and security with the promises of solidarity and prevention measures, pledging to support women in conflict, to defend their rights, and to work towards collective security. But where is the solidarity when women in Gaza, Sudan, Lebanon, Yemen, Congo, Cameroon, Myanmar, and many others conflict zones and war zones cry out for justice and protection, and states should too. For instance, defund humanitarian agencies created solely to offer them relief. Where are these feminist policies when women are losing everything, when their homes, their families, and their bodies are under attack? It is time to ask how these policies are translating into real actions on the ground, how they are standing up against the arms trade and the forces that perpetuate war and suffering. Last, are we here to point out the billions spent on arms, $2.4 trillion poured into weapons that perpetuate destruction, and again, it's not enough. This endless loop of destruction of infrastructure and dreams leaves no resources for real human security or the development that could allow us to build a future. We are here to ask the deeper question: why is the world ready to spend so much on destruction, yet so reluctant to invest in rebuilding lives, in addressing climate collapse, or in creating opportunities for women and young girls? Why is there endless funding for war, but so little for life and dignity? And just as Ivy was mentioning, the war is not only in the mind of men, it's in the minds also, and it's leading to the destruction of the lives of young women, and of species of our climate. So let us start, and I'm sorry we had to share these photos. It's just that we wanted you to see the photos that you have been seeing for the past year, but we have been living for the past of all of our lives. All of the speakers today have lived the war zones, have lived the war crimes in a way or another. We're going to start now with testimonies from two young girls and one local mediator, just to give you an idea about what is happening now. And then we're going to move about perspective from the different countries from MENA, so that you can also look at the impacts of these wars on women and girls, and how we're going collectively to stand in solidarity, how we're going collectively to work on a roadmap for us to work together to look at how we can use and utilize the Women, Peace and Security and the ABG platform of action for the well-being and for sustainable development 16, 16.4, SDG 17, SDG 5. So how we're all together going to work this, because even peace is in the mind of the people, but still we cannot achieve peace except collectively. I'm going to start now with giving the floor to Joud Khoder. Joud is 15 years old from Palestine, Ramallah. Joud is going to give us a testimony about her life as a child in Gaza and in Palestine in general. Joud, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Judah Khdair and I'm a 15-year-old Palestinian. I live in Ramallah in the West Bank and I don't know what life without the occupation feels like. Every Friday, I face the fear of crossing military checkpoints just to visit my grandparents. Each time, we are treated like criminals, searched and patted down. I've seen my dad call his siblings, telling them to wait before leaving their home because Israeli soldiers are on the roads and things might escalate at any moment. What breaks my heart the most is that I can't visit the place where my mother grew up. I only know it through her stories about the beauty of our land, now stolen from us. It's painful to hear about a world that feels so close yet remains beyond my reach. I dread opening the TV or scrolling through social media, knowing that every click could show me children just 2 hours away, crushed beneath their homes, their screams for help unanswered. I see mothers lose their children, denied the chance to watch them grow and succeed. Even those who survive the bombings in Gaza live in fear, a life of unending torture. What kind of world allows this? In Gaza, Families are burned alive in the tents they are forced to live in. They can't escape. Their flesh melts from their bones. Their final moments filled with agony and hopelessness as they die slowly and painfully. This isn't a war, it's a genocide. Innocent civilians, children, and women are being slaughtered. People in Gaza sleep to the sound of screams, sirens, and explosions. But the worst sound of all is when the screaming stops and the silence takes over, because it means they didn't survive. Children shouldn't have memories of bombs turning the night sky into blinding flames. Children shouldn't deal with the severe physical and mental pain. Children should be in schools, not in graves. 2 million people have lost their homes in Gaza. Among them, 625,000 children, 58% of them young girls, have lost the right to an education, to learn, to grow. And schools are reduced to rubble. And for some, their blood stains the classrooms they once dreamed in. Despite all the suffering and loss, no one seems to hear us. Our voices, crying and pleading for help, are met with silence, leaving children to fight alone, just to survive another day. This is the reality I live with, and the world must not look away. Thank you.
Thank you, Jude. So today, we ask everybody to hear us. It's not to hear only our sufferings, but also to see what life we're living through, the conflict and the war and the genocide that we're living. Do you think Jude is planning now on how to attend the CSW? Or do you think Jude is trying just to find a way for her to reach school? Or maybe just for her friend from Gaza to be alive tomorrow? This is the suffering that we have in our region. Next, we go to Bidaya Karam Sulaiman. Bidaya Karam Sulaiman is from the south of Lebanon. Bidaya is a local mediator, and she's a municipality member from the village of Hola. Bidaya, the floor is yours. Bidaya is going to speak in Arabic, so kindly, لحظة Bidaya, please. So kindly reach out to the interpretation and check it in English before Bidaya starts. اتفضلي بداية.
مرحبا للجميع. اسمي بداية سليمان وأنا عضو في المجلس البلدي في بلدة حولة الجنوبية. هذه البلدة المحاذية لفلسطين المحتلة. أنا أعمل في مجال التعليم كما أنني ناشطة في الشأن العام وفاعلة ضمن شبكة السيدات العاملات في الوساطة وحل النزاع وبناء السلام في منطقتي حصبية ومرجعيون في جنوب لبنان، كما أنني أيضا أم لطفلين. عندما أقول أنني ابنة بلدة حولة فهذا يعني أنني وأسرتي عايشنا ويلات الحرب منذ انطلاقتها في لبنان منذ 8 تشرين الأول من العام الماضي وحتى هذه اللحظة. عشت شهرا كاملا تحت الخطر حتى جاء يوم دمر فيه منزلي بفعل قذائف العدو الإسرائيلي، مما أجبرني على النزوح قسرا إلى بلدة أخرى قريبة من عملي ولكنها في الواقع ليست بعيدة عن دائرة الخطر. على مدى 11 شهرا الماضية كنا نعيش في ظل الحرب وجنونها من دمار وإبادة وترهيب. أصبحت أحاديثنا اليومية أنا وأسرتي وكل من حولي تدور بعبارات ثابتة: هذا جدار صوت لا تهلعوا، هناك طيران حربي في الأجواء، احذروا الغارات. وفي 23 من أيلول من هذا العام انتقلت الحرب إلى مستوى جديد في بلادي واجتاح لهيبها لبنان بأكمله. من ثم اضطررت حينها للنزوح مرة أخرى. هذه المرة كان النزوح أشد مرارة، حيث انتقلت أنا وأسرتي إلى شقة صغيرة نتشاركها مع 4 عائلات من أقاربي. صحيح أن بعض مستلزمات الحياة الأساسية متوفرة، ولكن كثيرا مما نحتاجه مفقود. المؤسف أن كل ما يحصل اليوم في وطني هو يبرر تحت مسمى ضرب أهداف عسكرية. ولكن منذ متى أصبحت النساء والأطفال أهدافا عسكرية؟ ومتى أصبحت المنازل السكنية وحتى الكنائس والمساجد أهدافا عسكرية؟ أنا هنا لا أتحدث بصفة أم، رغم أنني عاجزة عن تأمين أبسط الحقوق لأطفالي وأقدسها. أنا عاجز عن أن أؤمن الأمان والتعليم لأطفالي. ولا أتحدث بصفة عضوا في مجلس بلدي، فقد دمر مبنى البلدية واحترقت جميع ملفاتنا. كما أنني لا أتحدث بصفتي وسيطة محلية في ظل تغييبنا نحن الوسيطات عن طاولات الحوار وحل النزاع. وحتى نشاطي الاجتماعي لا يخولني الحديث، فأنا اليوم بأمس الحاجة لمن يمد لي يد العون اقتصاديا واجتماعيا. أنا هنا أتحدث بصفتي صاحبة حق، لي الحق في العيش بأمان، لي الحق في إدانة المعتدي، لي الحق في أن أرفع صوتي وأوقظ الشعوب النائمة وأطالبها بأن تكف عن لعب دور شاهد الزور. فالتاريخ سيتحدث وسيشهد، التاريخ سيتحدث وسيشهد. لسنا قرابين تضحى بها على مذابح مخططاتكم، وحدود الشرق الأوسط الجديد لن ترسم بأشلائنا ولن تلون بدمائنا وببعثرة أحلامنا. ومن هنا، من هذا المنبر الذي أشكره جزيل الشكر على أنه فتح لي ولغيري لرفع أصواتنا، أوجه رسالتي إلى دولة أمريكا، دولة الحريات المزعومة، دولة الديمقراطية. أوقفوا دعمكم للكيان الصهيوني، توقفوا عن تسليحه، كما أطالب الدول الأعضاء في مجلس الأمن باتخاذ قرار فوري بوقف إطلاق النار وإشراك النساء الوسيطات في طاولات الحوار وحل النزاع. السلام الحقيقي لا تبنيه إلا النساء وربات الأسر. نحن الأجدر برأب الصدع ومد جسور السلام. شكرا.
Thank you, Bidaya. Shukran, Bidaya. Thank you for this emotional and impactful speech. Like a person in decision making in a municipality, a local mediator, even a local mediator has no place in war. So this is a message from Bidaya. We need women to be at the peace processes negotiation, to be in the processes of ceasefire negotiations, and we needed to have it in a gender inclusive way. Now we come to the third participant who is going to tell us her testimony, Perla Kobaisi. Perla is from the South as well. Perla is a young girl from the South who is a member of the Young Women Plus Leadership, which is an initiative with the Permanent Peace Movement and the Global Network of Women Peace Builders. Perla, can you tell us more about your experience as a young girl, as a young child from Lebanon?
Of course. On September 23, after nearly a year of ongoing genocide in Gaza, everything changed. An 18-year-old's life was ruined. My life. I finally lived the dream I'd had for years, starting law school towards becoming a lawyer. That first week at law school was everything I'd hoped for, but it also became my last. I was sitting in class when the news hit. Israeli bombs had struck areas in South Lebanon, including where my grandparents and best friend lived. As the room erupted with students calling their loved ones, I heard my best friend's trembling voice over the phone as she said, "Perla, we're hiding in the hallway with pillows over our heads." That moment stays with me. It's the last memory I have of my university, my classmates, and my life before everything was suspended. My loved ones were lucky enough to be able to escape and go to a relatively safer area after more than 16 hours on the road. But not everyone's story ends like this. A testament of those different endings are the streets and public schools that are filled with displaced people that weren't able to find housing, as well as the 500 plus civilian souls lost just on that first day of bombing. Not everyone was as lucky as I am to see their families and best friends again. I followed news on TV to watch as my village, the place that holds my culture, my heritage, and my memories, was being destroyed. I saw neighbors and friends fleeing without being granted the chance to take anything with them, some to different towns, others to different countries. I went from being a happy, energetic person to someone exhausted and frightened all the time. I lost friendships, not just to distance or disagreements due to the duress of war on my friends and I, but because some of my friends are now gone, taken by the war. It's not fair that youth like me are forced to lose the most vital years of our lives to war. My grandparents lived through war, my parents lived through it, and I refuse to let my generation go through the same endless cycle of trauma. I see this trauma every single day, in my little cousin's tears after fleeing 16 hours from airstrikes, in the text messages that my friends and I sent saying, in case I die, I love you. And in my parents' helpless faces as they see me flinch from any loud sound, knowing they couldn't protect us from the horrors they know all too well. Today, I'm speaking to you after being displaced again, this time because a bomb hit right in front of our house in the middle of a meeting preparing for this very webinar. Displaced to an area we can't even be sure is safer because there are no safe areas in Lebanon. Yet, here I am, telling you that despite everything, we, the youth, are still here demanding to be heard. Action 20 of the recently negotiated Pact for the Future commits to accelerate the implementation of youth, peace, and security. But promises aren't enough. We need these commitments implemented properly, and youth networks also must hold governments accountable to make sure that we have a real seat at the table. We, the youth, are the ones living through the terror of war, and we deserve to shape the future, and we say this war must stop now. Thank you.
Wow, I'm hardly able to get my breath back to be able to speak. It's not only that it's emotional, you can see even like how the heart is beating through the words of Perla, Jod, and Bidaya. So I think for now, it's clear that we are not here for business as usual. We are here to transform the narrative from resilience, being expected to endure endless suffering, to demanding the right to live in dignity, safety, and equality. We refuse to be defined by our ability to cope and survive what should have never been inflicted on us in the first place. This is not a conflict. It is a war with systematic war crimes and a complete lack of empathy and accountability. We are here to challenge the patriarchal structures that hide within the spaces of decision-making, structures that continue to marginalize grassroots women, those on the front lines of every conflict. We call for collective security, and we call for collective solidarity, especially from women and peace organizations, a solidarity that we have been missing throughout this process. This is not about adding any other chapter to a history of broken promises. It's about rewriting that history. UN Security Council Resolution 1325 and the Beijing Platform of Action were supposed to change the story, to tell the world that women are not just victims, that we have the right to be at the table, to shape peace and to demand justice. Yet today we see the pillars of prevention and protection failing us in the MENA region. But we will not be silent. We will not accept a future where the right to live is a privilege. We are here to call for a new era of accountability, to insist that prevention means stopping the cycle of violence before it begins, and that protection means ensuring safety for every woman and child, not just in words, but in reality. It is time for the international community and for us in the room to truly listen and act. To those states with feminist foreign policies and ambitious national action plans, the time for words is over. Show us what solidarity looks like. Show us what a real commitment to women's rights in conflict areas and conflict zones mean. We are not projects. We are people. We are not merely resilient. We are demanding our right to live, to have our voices heard, and to create a future where violence no longer steals our dreams. Now it is time for us to hear, to be here and to speak, and it's time for you to hear us. It's time for transformation, not empty words. And here I will come to our second part. We will start with Palestine, and we will start with Amani Arouri, an expert on the Women, Peace and Security agenda. Amani received last week just an award from Democracy Today to thank her for all the courageous work that she's doing in Palestine and beyond. Amani, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shireen, and thank you to all of the speakers. I really don't know how to start, but definitely I will not repeat what has been said with regards to describing the situation. And I assume that everyone in this room is aware of what is going on, based on the fact that we are all here because we are demanding peace, demanding justice and equality. and we are promoting the Women, Peace and Security agenda. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the countless Palestinian women and girls who have been enduring the gendered impact of the occupation and war. Their lives are shaped by ongoing violence and war bombing in Gaza and West Bank, including East Jerusalem. These women and girls face arrests, forced evictions, and war, but they are not just victims. They are also agents of change, playing critical roles in their communities and beyond. In Gaza, the reconstruction and socio-economic recovery efforts must place women at the center. Women cannot be left out of decision-making processes that affect their futures, and humanitarian action must be gender responsive, addressing the unique needs of women and girls through an intersectional lens. This means ensuring the voices of Palestinian women, whether from rural areas or the diaspora, are heard and included in every step of recovery and political reconciliation. It is essential that Palestinian women have a seat at the table in the internal and international political processes. We must reaffirm that their voices matter, not just in local community efforts, but also in the global arena. They deserve to be heard, to be part of the solution, and to drive forward the peace and justice they long for. At the same time, human rights activists, including those in the West Bank, not only in Gaza, they face immense pressure. They are fighting for accountability and justice, but many live under daily threats of expulsion. This is not acceptable. The international community must recognize the urgency of protecting Palestinian women and children from these violations. To promote women, peace and security agenda in Palestine, we must consider the experiences of all Palestinian women, from those from all over the country to those in exile. It is particularly crucial to empower younger generations, especially young women, who are the future of Palestine and the region. These women are not just survivors of conflict. They are builders, leaders, and visionaries capable of making positive impact in their communities. We call upon global feminists and anti-colonial movements, as well as human rights organizations, to stand with Palestinian women. These movements must raise their voices against the crimes committed in Palestine and hold their government accountable for any complicity in these injustices. We demand that international bodies, including United Nations, enforce human rights protection for Palestinians, and Israel must be held accountable for its violations of international humanitarian law. The path to peace is through ending the occupation and ensuring justice and freedom for Palestinian people. Let me close by calling for immediate action from the UN to enforce Israel's compliance with the international law and halt attacks on civilians, an end to double standards in dealing with the Palestinian rights, and the immediate cessation of arms sales to Israel that fuel this violence and this war. Interventions by human rights organizations to pressure Israel to lift the blockade on Gaza and prevent further war crimes against civilians, particularly women and children. Finally, we demand that all states halt the transfer of weapons to Israel and Palestinian and any supporters of the war, especially supporters of Israel, while there is a risk of violations of international humanitarian law. The UN Security Council must take actions to stop the supply of arms that could be used to commit international crimes. And what has been seen in the TVs and all over the media with Palestinians being burnt alive and calling for help with no one able to reach them and give them this help, this is, I think, enough for any human being to stand out with Palestinians, not to be a human rights activist or not to be peace promoter. It's enough to be a human being to call for the end of this genocide and to end this war. Thank you.
Thank you, Amani. All that we call for is the implementation and operationalization of international humanitarian law and international human rights law. Thank you. We come next to Sohair Mahdi from Sudan. Sohair is the Executive Director of the Human Security Initiative. Sohair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shireen. Thank you, the floor. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Sohair Mahdi, Executive Director of Human Security Initiative, an activist dedicated to human security and peace building. Before the war, erupted in Sudan, I was actively promoting UN 13 resolutions 1325 and advancing the women peace and security agenda. Like thousands of other women, the conflict forced me to flee from my home, and now
Suhair, you're muted. Suhair, kindly, you are muted. If you can unmute yourself and start from where are you now?
Okay. As we mark 24th anniversary of Women, Peace and Security Agenda this month, it is crucial to reflect on its own core pillars. Unfortunately, sexual violence has played a devastating role in Sudan conflict. While numerous cases have been documented by aid agencies, addressing this issue remains highly challenging due to cultural taboo, which silence many survivors and render their suffering invisible. This is why many families fled their homes, abandoned everything to protect their daughters and wives from sexual violation. Millions of Sudanese have been forced to seek refuge in other countries, facing displacement and a difficult journey marked by widespread reports of women experiencing or witnessing rape, sexual assault, and harassment. These incidents occur not only during their escape to safe area inside or outside Sudan, but also within shelters where they seek protection. Women refugees face increased risk of gender-based violence, discrimination, and severe shortage of shelter and essential services in countries like Libya, Ethiopia, Chad, and North Sudan. Despite the presence of humanitarian agencies, the overwhelming number of refugees has stretched this organization beyond their capacity, leaving many needs unmet. Moreover, the conflict has sparked an environmental crisis. Decomposing bodies left in the conflict zone have led to the spread of infectious disease such as cholera, hemorrhagic fever, and malaria. In the absence of functioning healthcare system and limited access to medicine, this surrounds many of these communities. Even the basic act of burying the dead has become a challenge in areas still engulfed by conflict. Exaggerating the humanitarian disaster. Therefore, there must be an environmental consideration in all peace mediation effort. In Sudan, significant example of women activists emerged last August when women activists from both Sudan and refugee countries took proactive step in peace effort. They directly engaged with the rival parties to raise awareness about the violation faced by Sudanese women, although they did not participate at the main table for the ceasefire, mediation, or peace talk. Their effort made a substantial impact, underscoring the necessity for women to have a seat at the table, advocating for an immediate ceasefire. Additionally, they met with mediation team from IGAD and African Union, as well as international staff, to emphasize the importance of including women in the peace process and highlighting the urgent humanitarian needs of Sudanese women. Their intervention conveyed a powerful message. Sudanese women are not merely weapons used in the war. They are vital drivers for peaceful solution. The demand ensure the full and meaningful participation of women in all discussion and decision making process related to the urge all parties involved in conflict and the international community to implement comprehensive measures aimed at protecting women from rape and sexual violence in conflict areas. Call for intervention of UNHCR to ensure the safety and dignity of refugees women. This should include providing necessary funds and resources to create secure environments and deliver essential support services. Recommended that the World Health Organization provide urgent life-saving medicines and humanitarian aid to combat cholera and other epidemic disease affecting the Sudanese population. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sohair. As you see, there's a pattern of words, but still there's a specificity for each word, and each word has its own also discussions. We're going to have also plenty of time at the end to do some Q&A, so just stay there and please hold your questions. Next, we go to Rasha Jarhoum, the co-director of Peace Track Initiative from Yemen. Rasha, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shireen, and thank you for all the speakers ahead of me. This has been an overwhelming to prepare for this meeting, to hear all the stories and to see firsthand our friends who are featured here being targeted and suffering through this conflict. My name is Rasha Jarhoum, and I'm the co-director of Peace Track Initiative. It's a non-profit organization that is based in Canada and operates in Yemen to support women peace builders. I have lived through 12 wars and conflicts during my time in Yemen. That's more than 3 decades, expanded through 3 decades. I know and I understand what it means to run through the rubble and have your sole of feet being cut by the rubble. I know what it means to have bombardment and the pain of displacement and securing water through boiling seawater in besieged areas. I had to leave Yemen in 2012 when I had 2 boys of my own to protect them, to not live the same cycle of violence. And the first stop for me was actually Lebanon for 5 years. And I loved Lebanon so much, and I loved its people. And I could see the scars of previous wars in the buildings with all the bombardment that happened and the bullet shells. But it was beautiful because there was always those growing flowering plants around it. It gave it beauty. Today, it breaks my heart what is happening in our region. We finally made it to Canada, and my boys are happy here and secured and safe. But I'm also reminded that safety is a privilege. It's not available for every children of the world. Even Yemeni children who are in our neighboring country, America, are being targeted. A child last week, just this week actually, there was an attempt to slaughter her while she was playing. She's 7 years old, Yemeni child, and a white supremacist attacked her. This white supremacist to me is a criminal. And all the regimes and governments that continue to support Israel until today on their genocidal campaign against entire nations of Palestine, Lebanon, and even Yemen was targeted. This standing with Israel today means that there is unity for violence, unity for hatred, and unity for disregard of human life. Today, I wanted to come and talk to you about our priorities and needs in Yemen's peace process, emphasizing the urgent need to have specific tracks to discuss the Southern people self-determination issue. That's a big elephant in the room of Yemen if we want to progress in terms of peace. Also to call for the release of all the arbitrarily detained civilians, including women who are human rights defenders, colleagues of ours. But I am also hesitant to elaborate more on that when I know that I have a colleague in Lebanon who is being displaced, who shared with me her handover saying, in case I die. And when we hear all of this news coming from Palestine about kids and children and women being burnt. So I want us all to work together to stop this silent international community watching all of these atrocities being happening. This is very shameful. We are in an era that we should have evolved human rights protection and dignity, not deteriorating to the Middle Ages. I do believe that we all have the right to live in peace. We all have the same value of life, and we need to have collective action to realize and achieve peace in everywhere, in all the world, starting with our region that is boiling. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rasha. Definitely, we all have the right to live. We all have the right to live away from fear, away from want, and to live in dignity. Next comes Hala Bouagais from Libya. Hala is the director of Jusur for Studies and Development. Hala, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Shireen, and thanks for all my colleagues who gave a very insightful, very heart-warming testimony and intervention. I would like to talk about Libya, obviously. So since 2011, Libya has witnessed different forms of armed conflict. We'd like to call ourselves that we are the forgotten conflict in the region, especially when it comes to women suffering. So these conflicts were across the country. It had an immense impact on the institutions. It contributed to a widespread of insecurity combined with political instability, economic hardship, and complete impunity for human rights abuses, which created a dangerous environment, particularly for women who work in civil society and also political active women. Although many human rights violations against women have been recorded by various fact-finding missions and by the UN, also by the UN Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women during her official visit to Libya last year, there has been no condemnation or action taken. The different UN agencies working in Libya, they had a role of or they have been involved in monitoring these violations only. But this has to be reassessed and reevaluating because monitoring is important, but doing something to stop this is crucial. And although we have a dedicated sanction committee working in the United Nations Security Council that focuses on Libya, this committee works on crimes, financial crimes, crimes against humanity, but they have no focus on the crimes against women. And this something has to change, of course, if we want to make difference. If we look at the numbers of the last peace talk we had in Libya, you can assume that the women's participation was satisfactory. So women in the political dialogue forum or in the main peace table, women were made up 70% of the total participants. However, it's important to understand the forum's dynamic, where the political actors, the rival political actors, had to nominate their own representatives. So out of 20 representatives, only one woman was nominated. Here, I really want to highlight the important role of the UN special mission to Libya, who had to address this imbalance and created what's so-called the independent bloc, where they added more women and including women from different political bodies that had initially overlooked by their colleagues. The UN support mission also had a women track, so they held several consultation meetings with hundreds of women, so they understand their demands. They made these in a whole document and presented to the representatives of the Libyan society, so they know what women want and what women aspire. So this is something was good. Also, the Libyan peace process has 3 different tracks. So there is the political, security, and economic track. I want to highlight that women were totally excluded from the security discussions. They had no says in the ceasefire arrangements, or they have been absolutely absent in the ceasefire negotiation. Therefore, the ceasefire agreement that was a result of this had no gender consideration. Although the ceasefire agreement has focused on protection of human rights, combating hate speech, having special facilities for things. So this was absolutely had no gender sensitivity. When it comes to the economic track, we had a very the participation was initially low, so there was only 3 women, which is 6% of the participants. Then it was increased, but this increase happened when the economic track was inactive. They already have presented their economic roadmap. So, you know, this roadmap did not consider the importance of women in participation in the economy, or the women grievances, or the women needs, which was absolutely frustrating. So I just want to be quick here and jump to the demands and recommendations. So I think it's very important that not only in Libya, but all United Nations support mission must prioritize the WPS agenda in their intervention, including ensuring the full, equal, meaningful, and safe participation of women in all decision-making processes related to the peace mediation. And although women's participation is vital and it's very important, but it's equally important to ensure the integration of the gender perspective into discussion of political processes. Security, the economy, the impact of climate change, women has to be throughout these peace talks. So we shouldn't be only on numbers or tokens, as Shireen said. We should be part of the agenda. Our concern should be in the agenda, not only we are there to make the process looks correct. And finally, I think we need to prioritize preventing gender-based violence. I urge to prioritize preventing gender-based violence in Libya and all conflict-affected countries by sanctioning those responsible for such act, and urge the sanction committees in the UN Security Council to address gender-related human rights violations in their agenda. And here I stop. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hala. Hala briefed the Security Council just last week. So we are the women, and we need to be at different processes to talk about a gender-inclusive way on the impacts of these wars on us, and also to give a solution that is sustaining in the long term. We come now to Diala Shhade. Diala is a lawyer, and she's the alternate regional representative for WILF representing MENA. Diala from Lebanon will be shedding light on Lebanon. You need to unmute yourself. Kindly, can we have Diala unmuted? Not yet?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Shireen, for this really great webinar. Maybe this is the first webinar I participate in with this huge number of participants. I will not elaborate on the suffering of civilians, especially women and children in Lebanon and the region, because the story is already told by the young women who just spoke before me, would give a sample on what was already and is being broadcasted live every day by social media and traditional media to everyone in this planet, everyone who has access to the internet. I just want to reflect quickly on several inconsistencies between pledges made by governments for the last 20 years and the actions also taken by the same governments, especially governments of powerful states that can have some impact on the status of human rights, and especially women and children's rights, who consist of 80% of the communities affected by the armed conflicts, sorry. I would like to make this reflection, especially a few months before the 69th session of CSW, which main focus will be on the review and appraisal of the implementation of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. Because the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, adopted by almost all the countries of the United Nations 24 years ago, had actually set 6 strategic objectives to address women in armed conflict. And it also provided numerous actions to be done by governments to achieve these objectives. Among these strategic objectives actually, are to reduce excessive military expenditures and control the availability of armaments. Among these 6 strategic objectives is also to protect women in armed conflict and to assist refugee women and displaced women, and to provide assistance to men of the colonies and non-self-governing territories. So I really wonder how in the next year the appraisal of these objectives and the accomplishment, if any, and the commitment to these objectives would be. Noting that without the support of the powerful states in terms of supply of arms and of course political support, Israel wouldn't have been capable of committing crimes against humanity, war crimes and genocide crimes in Palestine and in Lebanon. In Lebanon, where I personally, I'm an opponent of Hezbollah. However, I had friends who were killed, journalists who are also opponent of Hezbollah, targeted on purpose by Israel a few months ago, Issam Abdallah, journalist with Reuters. I had also friends who are also opponent of Hezbollah and who are civilians, not need to say, who were forcibly displaced from their homes in Beirut and in the south. Just to say that this war, these declared by Hezbollah in Lebanon, as much as it has been the case in Gaza, is not a strategic war aiming to target only military targets by its enemies, which are Hamas or Hezbollah, and which the majority actually of the civilians in Lebanon and the majority of the civilians in Gaza do not support and have been suffering from crimes committed by these groups years ago. But these very communities, these civilians, are now suffering from crimes, ongoing crimes, being committed by Israel day after day since last year, for over a year, not only without any accountability, but without any action leading to a possible ceasefire. Noting that exactly how Shireen said at the beginning, ceasefire is not the answer. Ceasefire is not the solution, because the crimes that are not being, the perpetrators of the crimes who are not being accountable will commit these crimes again and again and again. And the perpetrators of these crimes in Israel are actually committing contempt also against the United Nations Secretary General, the United Nations personnel. They killed over 100 employees of the UNRWA in Gaza. They killed soldiers in the peacekeeping forces mission in Lebanon simply because they refused to withdraw from the positions. And it's really, it's dazzling for me how after all this, we haven't seen any serious actions by the powerful governments against this terrible amount of atrocities. Noting that even after 11 years of the adoption of the treaties, the Arms Trade Treaty, by 113 countries, including many European countries, we are still seeing states who are states party to this treaty violating it in terms of providing arms to states that might be using it against civilians. Not surprisingly, the United States is not a state party to this treaty. Not only it is not a state party, but 5 years ago in 2019, the United States informed the Secretary General of United Nations that they do not intend to become a party to this treaty. What does this mean? This treaty only regulates the use of arms in order not to let them be used against civilians. It simply means that the United States has the intention and the will since 2019 of using arms and weapons or selling arms of weapons to states that would be using it against civilians. Well, Germany, United States, you probably know that the United States is the first arms supplier. They supply Israel with over 60% of its arms and weapons, while the second supplier is Germany, who is a state party to the Arms Trade Treaty. And Germany did not yet refrain or commit itself to this obligation by the Arms Trade Treaty, and is still supporting Israel with arms. It is positive that during the last month, especially the last week, we've seen several European countries declaring that they no longer want to support Israel with states, several like Spain, Italy. But is this enough? I mean, during this webinar, dozens, if not hundreds, of women and children are being either killed or injured or targeted or forcibly displaced. What is the value really of seeing the majority of the countries of the world, specifically 189 countries, committing 24 years ago to the Beijing Declaration, if they do not want to really commit to the strategic objectives concerning women in armed conflict, which were pledged by this treaty 24 years ago? Well, a lot of inconsistencies that we all know that it is the result of the policies of individual governing ruling these countries against the commitments of these states. Even the international judicial developments will not really lead to anything nowadays. It could become a preventive action against these atrocities, but nothing is going really to stop the suffering and crimes. I'm sorry, do you still hear me? Can you still hear me? Okay. So just I think I made my point by saying that what is needed today, especially with many representatives of the United Nations, of governments, of UN bodies or international governments, are now participants in this webinar. And I know that you must be more frustrated than anyone, especially that those who do not have positions with responsibility like you. But what is needed today is to really see actions by government rather than words. We really need to see states putting an end to the support of the perpetrators of the major crimes against humanity, against women and children. We need to see them not only stopping fueling arms to countries, Israel, that I would simply allow myself to describe as terrorist states. Because what is terrorism is if it's not terrorizing?
Yala?
What is terrorism if it's not terrorizing children and women? Almost over 50,000 civilians, the majority of whom are women and children, were killed in Gaza. Over 2,000
civilians, the majority of them are women and children, are killed in Lebanon. All the population of Gaza were forcibly displaced several times. 1,500,000 civilians were forcibly displaced in Lebanon, many of them several times. Many internally displaced civilians were targeted and their refuge by Israel. So I'm sorry, maybe. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. So this is what this is what for, just to see actions and to see the representatives of these governments and of the United Nations really making more pressure to see actions rather than words by these governments.
Thank you for the intervention, Diala. We move to have to Hala Kilani, Hala, who is the Vice President of Wolf Lebanon, and she's also a global consultant on climate, energy, and environment, to give an overview of the implications of the conflict on Lebanon and the region. But I'm sorry, Hala Kilani, I'm going to ask you to be very brief. I'm sorry, just for the sake of time. Diala, Hala Kilani. Can we unmute Hala?
Hello, sorry, I'm in a public place, but I hope you hear me well. We have seen that the impact of the Israeli aggression on women and girls in Palestine is huge, as many of my colleagues said. So there's an estimated 520,000 women and girls displaced and in desperate need of shelter and safety in Lebanon alone. And the UN Women estimates that 12,000 families, displaced families, are headed by women. In Gaza, conservative figures show that more than 6,000 women and 11,000 children were killed by the Israeli military over the last 12 months. There are an estimated 11,600 pregnant women in Lebanon, 4,000 of whom are expected to deliver in the next 3 months. So these women need urgently nutritional and health essential items, as well as need for safety, protection, and psychological support. As you know, also maintaining decent health becomes significantly more challenging for women and girls who are experiencing menstruation and pregnancy while on the run from violence and taking refuge in crowded shelters. Of course, there's these women have also toddlers and are in desperate needs for essentials like milk and diapers. So the war crimes are many, besides the indiscriminate killing of civilians, and especially women and children. We saw the targeting of schools in Gaza and Lebanon, hospitals, rescue workers, journalists, torture of hostages, and rape. So besides all of this, Israel has been using indiscriminately internationally prohibited weapons like phosphorus in Lebanon and Palestine since a year, which amounts to a war crime as per human rights organizations like Amnesty International. They have been dropping white phosphorus in densely populated areas, which causes, as you know, grave injuries. So the burns from white phosphorus on less than 10% of a body could lead to death because of damage to kidneys, liver, and heart. This incendiary weapon, governed by Protocol 3 of the Convention on Conventional Weapons, is highly toxic. It affects it bioaccumulates and persists over time, making it effectively an assailant to our biosphere. And in Lebanon, it has decimated over 4.5 million square meters of forest land, which are habitat for many species and insects. It's also posing a threat to migratory birds, and it lingers in the air for long duration. We in Lebanon lost many olive groves ahead of harvest season, which is also added economic losses and impacts on food security. So in addition to the human and wildlife, the white phosphorus poisons the soil, air, and water. There's alarming evidence from a small but crucial study conducted in Gaza that it will increase birth defects in babies born from now onwards. This is what the author Rob Nixon called slow violence. So the impact on women and children will be perpetuated far longer than this conflict. We also know that the greenhouse gas emissions resulting from the use of these weapons are undermining all our efforts to combat climate change. So war-related greenhouse gas emissions are still undercalculated and downplayed. It is estimated that now this war has generated over 652,000 tons of carbon dioxide, which is equivalent to burning more than 1.5 million barrels of oil. This figure soars to more than 61 million tons when pre- and post-war construction and reconstruction are included. So what we my co-speakers also spoke about the military expenditure. Instead of this going to climate mitigation, adaptation, we're actually increasing climate change. And it is sad to say that we are hoping amidst all this dehumanization, when all these figures are not stopping the militarization and support for Israel by all powerful countries, we are hoping that at least the environmental impacts can wake these politicians up, because as you know, the atmosphere it will affect everyone, and everyone will be impacted by climate change. Yeah, it's really sad that we are hoping that these figures will actually move politicians to act and stop this military support for Israel, and act with an arms embargo, and try to actually divest the military expenditure into more sustainable development projects that support women and girls and combat climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Hala. So though we're talking about MENA, but we want to recognize, and I just said it also, I'm going to say it again, there's a pattern in conflict. And when we talk about women in MENA, it means also we're talking about women in other spaces. It's just like some examples might differ, but the implications on the climate, on arms, we are all similar. We are all in the same boat. Let us move to the final speaker, Hanum Latif from Iraq. Hanum is the director of Asuda for combating violence against women. Hanum is going to give us a brief demands from women from Iraq.
شكرا جزيلا شيرين لهذه الفرصة. سوف أتكلم أو أتحدث بالعربي. أنا خانم لطيف، مديرة منظمة أسودا لمناهضة العنف ضد المرأة في العراق، وسوف أخلص حديثي على الأجندة الأمن والسلام والمرأة والسلام والأمن. ما يتعلق بالعراق فقد حققت منظمات غير حكومية وخاصة أنا سوية منها إنجازات والمكاسب ملحوظة خلال سنوات سابقة، والآن هناك بوادر والمحاولات من قبل الحكومة لتحسين دور هذه المنظمات ودعمها. أما فيما يخص أجندة المرأة والسلام والأمن، نفتخر أننا من الرواد حيث كنا أول دولة في المنطقة عملنا على خطة الوطنية عام 2012 وتبنتها حكومة في عام 2014، وعملنا على خطة ثانية ونحن الآن بصدد إطلاق الخطة الثالثة. مع ذلك لا تزال هناك مشاكل مستمرة في هذا المجال، حيث لا توجد نساء على طاولة المفاوضات وغياب تام للنساء في لجان الوساطة، بالإضافة إلى عدم وجودهن في عملية صناعة القرار السياسي والقرارات المصيرية. وهذا وصلنا إلى حالة أن نسأل عن غياب آلية المساءلة على مستوى الدولي والوطني بخصوص أجندة السلام، وعدم وجود آلية المتابعة والرصد لمستوى الالتزام الدول أو عدم التزامهم بالقرارات. وبخصوص الأمن، نحن لسنا بأمان ونحن بحاجة إلى آلية الحماية صراحة، وأيضا نطالب على ضرورة وجود آلية المراقبة والمتابعة لضمان أمن والحماية الناشطات والمنظمات في دول النزاع. وأقول أيضا إن استمرار الصراعات أو تصعيدها في بلداننا يهدد بخسارة مكتسباتنا، إذ لا يمكن أن نتحدث على التنمية والنمو إلا في بيئة مستقرة اقتصاديا وسياسيا واجتماعيا. لذا أطلب من خلالكم أن تدعو حكومة العراقية الالتزام بتوصيات لجان مراجعة التقارير والاتفاقات الدولية في ذلك بما في ذلك أجندة المرأة والسلام والأمن، وإشراك المنظمات بشكل فعال والمرن ودون تمييز في الخطط الاستراتيجيات المستقبلية، بما في ذلك اتفاقية القضاء على جميع أشكال التمييز ضد المرأة واستعراض الدور الشامل واتفاقية حقوق الطفل. علاوة على ذلك أشجع المجتمع الدولي على استمرار في تقديم الدعم الفني والمالي المرن للمنظمات النسوية، لأن هذه المساعدة تشكل أهمية بالغة لتمكيننا من استدامة التقدم الذي أحرزناها بالفعل والبناء عليه. وأخيرا أقول نعم للوقف الإطلاق النار الفوري في دول النزاع، وشكرا جزيلا.
Thank you, Khanam. That was our last speaker. As you have seen, there is so much pain, there is so much suffering. We are unable to think of the now for us to think of the future. But we are committed, and we are committed to peace. I just want to end up with mainly 3 points, and thank you so much for hearing us, and thank you so much for being able also to act for us when we are unable to speak. In closing, I just want to come up with mainly 3 demands, and we're going also to post in the chat some of our demands to be also edited later. We just want to say that the Women, Peace and Security agenda needs to be revised, adapted to the reality of the regions and the zones of war in order to have a chance to succeed. Not through more resolutions. As the NGO working group is saying, we don't need more resolutions, but through real actions that prioritize prevention, protection, and meaningful participation in the realities we live. And militarization, occupation, and violence. The time for empty promises and resolution detached from realities has passed. And our demand to governments, we must break the vicious cycle of destruction, bombs, shattered infrastructures, dehumanization of displacement, and endless reconstruction. We need an arms embargo on Israel today in place. We need an end to the colonial settler apartheid regime, not just in Israel, but around the world. Prevent to protect. Third, we need to have a call to action for all of us here in the room. We call for collective solidarity from women and peace builder organizations around the world and beyond. Look at our own government and look at how your own tax money is being spent. Revolt against your government if your government is complicit with international crimes. Strike, go out to the streets, boycott, make yourself heard, and remember that there is no peace without us. I want to thank everybody in the room. And I would want it so much to have a discussion in the room and to see like what are the points that you were raising. Unfortunately, I could not follow up that chat, but I could see many messages. What is most important today is that we generously had this generous coordination and collaboration with the NGO CSW. And this is, I think, this is a start for us, for women who are underprivileged in the sense of our voices that we cannot have in spaces such that. To have a part in the international coalitions that women are leading, to hear us and raise our voice. We want the Women, Peace and Security open debate to reflect the demands that we had in this room. We want everybody in the room to go back to their governments and to call to a ceasefire, to a comprehensive ceasefire in MENA, to stop sending weapons. And you know what is weapons? It's a vicious circle of destruction of unresolved resources, resources that are spent on destruction, sent to our region to destroy our lives, to destroy our infrastructure, to destroy our dreams, to destroy all our youngsters, and at the same time, send us some tents, sending us some food with lack of dignity, I would say. There is no dignity in receiving such humanitarian support when you are in a tent. And this dignity, which is a dignity kit that we are receiving. And then at the same time, we go back to the reconstruction, the same those companies who have the industry of armament are the same who have the reconstruction. So it's all a business. But we're saying this is not a business as usual. We need to raise our voices together collectively and to make women, peace and security work, because we want women, peace and security. It's our haven. So I want to give back the floor to Ivy and Pamela. And maybe we can meet soon, some other places. Kindly reach us, the Arab Feminist Network, and to Wolf Lebanon. We'll be very happy to continue that discussion also through the NGO W working group. Thank you. Back to you, Ivy and Pamela.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for all of the very active engagement also in the chat. I did want to acknowledge that. There's been quite a lot happening there. And Shireen, thank you so much for the program, all of the panelists, all the speakers, the contributions, the heart that you brought today to all of us. And it has been, mentioned that, again, there are so many conflicts. We can hear these same stories, copy paste in any country, region. And, the suffering is the same in the sense that it's suffering, period, right? We don't judge what kind of suffering that is. But what we wanted to do is spotlight this region, particularly now. And yes, so let's start taking actions. Thank you for the summary of demands and very concrete actions that we can take where we are. And Pamela?
Yes, I want to extend my thanks to the brave women who spoke today. And because I know that although we are focused on the MENA region today, we know that there are women who are in conflict areas and living in difficult situations around the globe. And so these women are actually representational for women in South Sudan, women in Ukraine, women from all over the world who are experiencing these horrors. So thank you. And let's continue this important conversation. I'm sorry we don't have time for Q&A, but I want to offer my gratitude to everyone who stayed with us and who made the time to come. Next month, NGO-CSW is going to focus on violence against women and girls and the environment. So we'll hope to see you next month. We wanted to do something a little special. And this looks at women who have lost their lives all over the globe. In the chat, if you can put the name of a woman who you know or you've heard of who has lost her life in conflict, whether you're in whatever continent you're on, Africa, Asia, etc., Australia, wherever you're from, please put the name of a woman in the chat who you know who has lost her life in conflict. And then let's work and struggle for peace. Ivy?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Pamela. And also, I mean, if you wanted to open your mic and say the person's name, that is okay too. We do open mics at the very end to say goodbye and see you again. And, you know, so please, yes, I see the names coming in. Thank you very much. We wanted to honor those women here. And today also, we didn't mention earlier, the two critical areas we were focusing on was women in conflict, but also the girl child. And that's why I was very moved to hear the younger voices here today. Yes. Thank you. So with that, we will close and say our farewells and see you next month, and take care everyone, everywhere, wherever you are. Bye.
Goodbye and blessings.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Pam and Ivy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shireen.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
All of you. Yes.
Thank you,
Gracias.
bye for all.
Bye.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Peace. Bye.
Peace.
Wonderful meeting.
Bye.
Adios.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, Amrita. Bye.
Thank you very much for all the speakers.
Adios.
Adios.
Blessings to all.
Thank you for your kindness.